Hello again. Whenever our government passes an innocuous sounding piece of legislation with a long waffly title which suggests that it's for the good of us all, I immediately ask myself how it will have an adverse effect on ordinary law-abiding people in this country. So it was that when I became aware of a new law being passed that was called the Data Protection and Digital Information Bill, I at once smelt a rat. Data protection sounds good, doesn't it? Combining this with digital information suggests to the unwary that this is a new law which will help to preserve our privacy and protect our data and information from getting into the wrong hands. On the face of it, that sounds a really good thing. Something which will keep our details safe online, perhaps. It is when one reads the longer title of this bill that our suspicions are aroused. In the description to this video, I give a link to Parliament's website where the full title of this bill may be found. This is, it seems, a bill to make provision for the regulation of the processing of information relating to identified or identifiable living individuals, to make provision about services consisting of the use of information to ascertain and verify facts about individuals, to make provision about access to customer data and business data, to make provision about privacy and electronic communications, to make provision about services for the provision of electronic signatures, electronic seals and other trust services, to make provision about the disclosure of information to improve public service delivery, to make provision for the implementation of agreements on sharing information for law enforcement purposes, to make provision about the keeping and maintenance of registers of births and deaths, to make provision about information standards for health and social care, to establish the Information Commission, to make provision about oversight of biometric data, and for connected purposes. Gosh, what a mouthful! Actually, reading that tells me that this bill will actually serve precisely the opposite purpose to what we might have thought from the short title. When talking about protection of information and digital so and so, we might have assumed that this was to protect our details and to ensure that information about us online was kept private. It is precisely the opposite. Just in case you missed the important giveaway, and of course, who wouldn't? It was just hidden away in all that verbiage. It was a bit about making provision about the disclosure of information to improve public service delivery. This is code for checking people's bank accounts in case they are fiddling the social. That is to say, claiming benefits to which they are not entitled. Perhaps they're claiming to be unemployed or poverty-stricken, but their bank accounts will show that they have more money than they say, or that they're being paid regularly by an employer. In other words, working while they're claiming that they're unemployed. Of course, many people will approve of rooting out benefit cheats in this way. But the actual clause in the bill, which was slipped in at the last moment a few days ago, after the bill had passed through the Commons, a very sharp piece of work there by the government to wait until it had passed all through the various stages and then stick that piece in. That little bit that they stuck in authorises the government to examine the bank accounts of anybody in the country who is receiving social security benefits. Any sort of benefit at all, that is. Those whose accounts are scrutinised in this way will not be told about it, and nor will anybody in authority have to have any grounds at all for suspecting fraud. They can just pick out somebody at random who happens to be receiving child benefit and trawl through her bank account to see if there was anything interesting there. Yes, that sounds awful enough, obviously, But there's a little bit more, because everybody in Britain receiving the state pension will also have their bank account open to the same inspection, all 12.5 million of them. In fact, practically everybody over the age of 65 will now have no privacy at all for their financial affairs. This is because the state pension is, and I quote, a benefit payment available to the majority of people when they reach the current pension age. It is a universal, non-means tested benefit available to all, so long as they have made the requisite national insurance contributions or credits. Few people realise this. In talking to people, hardly anybody realises that the old age pension is actually a benefit. It's a social security benefit in exactly the same way that universal credit or child benefit is. So by putting in the bit in that new bill about being able to look into the bank accounts of people receiving benefits, social security benefits, it means that everybody in the country over the age of 65 will now have their bank accounts open entirely to the government whenever anybody from the government cares to glance at them. In other words, it does not matter, and nor is it any business of the government, how much an old person earns, because the pension is not means tested, so they're not looking for benefit cheats. There's no question of anybody managing to cheat or fiddle their pension. Any viewers who are over the age of 65 might like to think about this for a moment. I can think of two reasons offhand why the government might have done this. Probably both the reasons which I've come up with are true. The first possibility is that plans are afoot to means test the old age pension. There is currently a lot of fuss about how much it is costing to pay all those pesky old folk £800 a month, and if a way can be found to cheat some old people out of this money on the grounds that they have another source of income, then I'm quite sure the government would be delighted to take it up. It might be recalled that a similar trick was pulled with child benefit a few years ago for people that have more than one child. It became means tested. It's dependent now upon income. The second reason that occurs to me is very simple. Governments, all governments, love to know what their citizens are up to at all times. Governments like to know how much money we have, what we're doing with it, where it comes from. They simply can't bear the idea of people having private lives, and so if they can find an excuse to pry into the lives of their citizens, they will do so. As I say, it's very likely that both these things are true. That is to say that the government both wishes to find out more about what folk are doing with their own money and where they're getting it from, while at the same time planning to disqualify those whom they think can manage well enough without the old age pension from drawing it, to make it means tested like other benefits. Of course this would be iniquitous, but I doubt that would discourage our masters from going ahead with such a scheme. Fortunately, I do not draw the state pension, and so will not fall within the provisions of this new law, but I'm very much the exception. Viewers might like to ask themselves how they feel about this business. The description to the video, as usual, contains a number of links backing up what I've been saying in this video. It really is a bit much, and personally I think it's time that someone fired a warning shot over the bowels of government, but how that was undertaken is more than I could say.